You guys, I am so excited to be recording the slow cooker class because I've given you slow cooker recipes in Kathy's Cooking Club, but I've never been able to do a slow cooker recipe because nobody wants to be in a 10-hour class, including me. So I'm going to do some of the recipes are from the revised slow cooker, and I may tweak them or tell you how to tweak them. The first one we're going to make green chili refried black beans. Oh my God, that's the most awkward title ever. So let's just call it refried beans with chilies. Okay, got just some soaked black beans. This is 1 pound or 2 cups. If you just bought a whole bunch, I actually bought these at the Hispanic markets. They were cheaper. We need a can of green chilies, just 4 ounces. We're going to use some cumin and chili powder, not for the stew. So this is Ancho Gordo New Mexican red chili. You don't have to have that. This is an Ancho Guajillo mix that I made myself. So it can be any single chili or a salt-free chili for the stew powder. Optionally, you can add a little jalapeno powder. It really amps up this. I like it a lot. It doesn't add to the heat. And optionally, you can add some liquid smoke. So it's a ridiculously easy thing to do. And I probably have 5 different slow cooker refried bean recipes. So if you don't have black beans, you can use pinto beans. It will all work just fine. Don't have chili powder, reconstitute a dried chili. So take your kitchen shears, take the stem off, take the ribs and seeds out. I usually slice it in small strips with those, or I cut it into small strips, pour some boiling water over it. Puree that all together, put it in here. Chipotle and adobo sauce sounds lovely. You could do, if you don't like green chilies, you could just leave it out. What if you had some roasted red pepper, some roasted garlic laying around in the fridge? Lovely ideas. So basically, you can kind of make this the way you like it. At the end, not in the beginning, there's a lot of controversy about do you salt dried beans or don't you before you cook. I just err on the side of caution. It can slow the cooking, and if you have some older beans, it can be significantly more difficult. If you have a new slow cooker, the best recipe to try in it is refried beans because we don't care if the beans get overcooked. So you can soak these or not. I think in the recipe, I am not soaking it. Steve from Rancho Gordo does not soak his beans. So there's a big controversy about that. I went ahead and soaked these and strained them. I do find if you have some issues with your digestion in beans or you're just adding more beans in, go ahead and soak them. After that, see how your body responds and make that choice. So I'm just going to come in here. The recipe called for unsoaked beans, so I might need a little less water. Got my little spaghetti monster colander in here. So I just soak them overnight. I usually do it before I go to bed, so I rinse them, look them over, and cover them in probably twice as much water as I think they need. Then I'm going to go ahead and mix in this 1 can or 4 ounce of fire roasted green chilies. Honestly, I think this is just the Target brand, so it's super easy. Let me grab some minced garlic. I don't know why. I went back and forth about using garlic powder or minced garlic several times. And in a hot minute, I'm going right back. Let me find, there it is. Hello, minced garlic in my fridge. This one I think is from Aldi or Lidl. It's just in water. I think the one in Trader Joe's is just in water. And we're going to put 2 teaspoons of minced garlic. Hate garlic, leave it out. Love garlic, add more. I think this is good. We could also put some onions in there if you wanted to. You could put some peppers, like just sliced bell peppers, and let that cook for a while. It's a really easy recipe, and it's super forgiving. The next thing we're going to do is about a teaspoon of cumin powder. And we're going to keep these spices out. That's why I'm going to keep everything here. And then when it cooks, the biggest thing about slow cooking is taste and reseason before serving. Because my cumin, when I made this, might have been super fresh, and maybe this one isn't as fresh, or vice versa. So you always want to go ahead and have that so you can taste and adjust as you want to. All right, we're going to do a teaspoon of chili powder. You can add more if you want it spicy. I'm going to use this ancho guajillo blend, and in fact, I'm going to put 2 teaspoons in here because I'm feeling spicy. You can do about a teaspoon liquid smoke. This is the cleanest one I found, which is Lazy Kettle brand, and I just freehand it. And if you don't love smoky things, don't use a whole teaspoon. Use a 1/4 teaspoon to a 1/2 teaspoon. And then I'm going to use just a 1/2 teaspoon of jalapeno powder. I find that it gives me a little bit of a brighter note instead of the dark, low note, red dried chilies. And it doesn't add a lot of spice. It just adds a lot of flavor. It goes really well if we want to add in some lime. And then it says 4 1/2 cups of water, and you will need more water if you didn't soak your beans. So I'm going to do about 2 1/2 cups. The reason I'm cutting the water in half is that I soak the beans. You can always turn it on to high later on and cook off any extra water. I'm cooking these while I'm at home, so I'll tell you as we go, just like if this was a live class. If I end up adding any, I'll pop in and show you. But basically, that's about it. Actually, let's go ahead and we'll do 2 1/2. And one of the reasons I think refried beans is the best thing to do is that it's very forgiving. And this slow cooker loses less water because it's got this seal, right? So another one may cook high and just water comes out and you notice that, then you may need to add a little extra water. This one, I may have even added too much water. We'll find out. And you don't really have to do this, but I enjoy it, so I do. So this is the Hamilton Beach. I love this one, and it is discontinued, as all the cool ones that I will show you. There's only one good 3-in-1, and it's very expensive now. If you find this at a thrift store or a garage sale, go for it. So you press on, then you press if you want it to cook for 2 quarts, 4 quarts, or 6 quarts. And we're going for 4 quarts. You can do high or low. We want to cook on low, and then it'll keep beeping, and then it kind of takes it right there. So these can literally cook probably 6 to 18 hours if you have enough water in there. So these are also good if it's a day that you're just not sure how long you're going to be gone from the house. Once you've made these once, you can kind of adjust it. Now again, if you did not soak your beans, I would start with 4 1/2 cups. If you're getting a new to you slow cooker, even if it's from the thrift store and it's well used, make sure that you're at home the first time you cook with it. Same thing with a new one. That way you can kind of take a look and go, wow, that cooks way, way, way hotter. Or, oh my gosh, this is going to take 48 hours to cook. Let me turn this up to high. Any recipe in the slow cooker can pretty much be cooked in half the amount of time on high versus low. You don't really want to cook on warm, though some are automatic. This is not one that will go ahead and cook your time and then switch it to warm. So you can kind of look around with that. This is a recipe you absolutely do not want to make on the slow cooker setting in your Instant Pot. Don't do dried beans ever. I mean, if it's the zombie apocalypse and that's all you've got, then maybe. Because I don't understand the physics of it, but like it could take lentils 20 hours to cook. So there's something weird. There's something not programmed correctly with it. It does fine with vegetable soups and stews. So like the jackfruit we're going to make, if we end up adding already cooked beans or canned beans to it, that would be fine to do on the slow cooker setting on your Instant Pot. I'm also in all these recipes going to try and give you kind of Instant Pot instructions just in case you don't have one. Okay, so there we go. We'll see what happens. All right, so the cooking is done. Instead of it being the night that I made these, in fact, this is the next morning. So it's kind of really a testament to how easy and flexible this recipe is. So I did check on them before I left for the evening, and then I just didn't want to film. I was very tired. And one of the things that's great about beans in the slow cooker is unless you're wanting them to be the same texture as they come out of the can, if you're looking for creamy, yummy beans like that, you can just keep cooking them. So with this slow cooker, I had to restart it and do another 12 hours, and that's really important. I almost forgot that, and Cheryl noticed that it was off. But depending on your slow cooker, if you have low, high, and warm settings, it's just going to stay on that until you turn it off. If you have one of these kind of more pseudo programmable ones, it's going to depend on the make and model. So let's take a look. So I had soaked these beans and I had used less water and I didn't need any extra water. Okay, and I have my seasonings and my salt over here ready. And this particular model, remember, has a gasket. So it lost almost no water at all. And in fact, we may even need to scoop off some of the water, but I think it's going to be fine. So see, one of the things I do, if you haven't seen my bean test, I do this for slow cooker, for all the things. So basically, you take a bean and you swish a spoon and twist. And see, it's really nice and creamy. If it just splits in half, then it needs to cook longer. My beans all squished good. It didn't just break in half into two unique solid halves, which means it's not quite cooked enough. I'm going to go ahead and taste that. It's not bad. I can still taste, even though it cooked extra long. So basically it cooked probably 12 extra hours, maybe longer. And that's just one of the things that's so great about the slow cooker. Anyhow, I just love my slow cooker. I'm going to taste it. I don't think it needs any more liquid smoke. I'm going to add a little more chili powder to it. So I just think it could use a little extra oomph. I'm going to give it kind of a darker flavor. And if you didn't want to use salt at all, the lime would really kind of perk it up. So if you're salt-free, I would definitely put in at least a couple of pieces of lime juice. I'm going to go ahead and squeeze in basically 3/4 of a lime is what I'm putting in here. And that will help me cut down on some of the salt that I'm going to use. And while it's not in a recipe, I'm going to go ahead and put 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast in here just to give it a little extra flavor as well. I think that will be, all of this will be kind of good together. Let me taste the broth a little bit. Yes. You could probably just use half a lime. I'm going to also freeze it, and I'm probably going to use about a teaspoon and a half-ish of salt. I'm going to make it real light salt. And I'm just stirring to dissolve and move all that around. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, and you can do, I'm going to use an immersion blender, and I'm just going to puree it all. If you're worried that you have too much liquid, there are two things you can do. One, I could scoop some of this broth off and save it to the side and see if I need it. The step that I'm more likely to do is maybe put it on high after I blend it and leave the lid cracked and let some of that evaporate off if it's too watery. I also know that even if these refried beans are a little bit thin, they're going to thicken up as they cool. They're going to thicken up as they freeze. But I could also then take everything and put it on the stove and do it real quick. You know what? I may need to take some of this out. Let me get a little bowl, because it's actually looking more watery than I thought it did. So I'm just gonna get some of this off. You want to get as little bean in there as possible. Now, if for some reason I don't put this broth back in, this would be a great base for a quick vegetable black bean soup for lunch. And if you were using a slow cooker that did not have a gasket and you soaked your beans, you wouldn't have quite this much liquid left over. Some slow cookers that cook really hot, you actually will end up learning that you need to add, I don't know, an extra half cup to cup of liquid to every recipe you make in it. Especially, and I know we talked about this in the beginning, if you're using like your mom or your grandma's old slow cooker, those just don't run as hot. They've changed the food safety requirement temperature, and it all has to do with meat safety, which doesn't affect us. So don't feel shy about buying a slow cooker in the thrift store. Sometimes you can get lucky and get an older one that cooks a little bit less hot. It's not that big a deal once you learn exactly what your slow cooker needs. Okay, so this was probably about 2 cups of liquid I took off there. And I can always add some back if it looks too thick, but we'll see what happens. You could also put these in a blender. And usually I hold mine up a little bit, straight down, and try and get as much of the bean stuff out of the middle that I can. So see how it kind of cleans the blade when you do that? It's not perfect and it doesn't clean everything, but it gives you a start. There we go. And then I'm going to take a spatula and just kind of go go around this and get as much of this off as I can for two reasons. One is I don't want to waste any of my lovely beans. Two is it's going to make it easier to clean. So spatulas have two main amazing purposes, and I have a lot of spatulas. I'm also going to try and get a little bit of this off the inside. This spatula I love because it's super flexible, so it's likely to get a little more out of here. And in fact, my beans are looking pretty perfect. And see how they're going to seem a little thinner now, but as they cool, they're going to thicken up some. If they still don't thicken up to where you want them to be, again, you could turn this on high, and what I would probably do is either have something like this here and crack the lid. Just the benefit of doing it this way over doing it on the stove is that I can just put it on high, go about my business. I don't have to tend to it. If I put it on the stove, I'm going to have to tend to it. The other thing we need to do is we need to do one more taste since we took the liquid out after we seasoned. So don't be me, do better, right? Okay. I think they taste perfect. And again, if you want to make them smokier at this point, add a little more liquid smoke. If you're like, oh, I want these spicier, add some different chilies, add cayenne pepper, add arbol pepper, add more jalapeno powder. I think the lime really brightens it up. You don't taste the lime super a lot. We probably got some of the lime juice off in the broth. But I probably would use half a lime and 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, and I'm going to add that to the recipe you guys get, okay? So hopefully this was easy. I used dried black beans that I got at the Hispanic market. They were $1.20 a pound. They were very inexpensive. The chilies, to make the chili powder, and don't forget that you guys can go to the Make Your Own Spices class, and I show you how to dry the chilies and make them into powder. And I think that's about it. If you don't like liquid smoke, just don't put it in. I hope that helps a lot, and let me know how you like to make your refried beans.